I'm Moritz. My background is in engineering. We kind of fell into the crypto world, looking at the whole potential that the blockchain technologies could bring to the world and the impact that this could cause on the whole industry. Since then, we've created one of the biggest blockchain communities in Australia, and working really close to the community, really close with developers, with enterprise, with entrepreneurs, with everybody in the whole ecosystem. We were able to identify really key elements that the industry needed, and that's what led us to start working on our project, that is Tenzorum.
So I'm Daniel, I'm co-founder of Tenzorum. I came to Australia 3 years ago to work on research in quantum computation and kind of got deep down the blockchain rabbit hole. Started the blockchain community a bit forward, and we're really fascinated by the potential of blockchain technologies to create inclusive and equitable economy for the future of humanity, and the transformative computing aspect of it as well.
So Tenzorum fundamentally is a decentralized key managed protocol. So what happens is, like, first we had Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin provides us peer-to-peer decentralized money. After that we had Ethereum, the whole idea of decentralized peer-to-peer computational power. But what happens is that fundamentally, if we don't guarantee that the access to these decentralized networks, these decentralized services in itself are in fact decentralized, the whole future of the blockchain, the Web 3.0, and this vision that you have about decentralization is not going to happen, because the access in itself has to be decentralized. So Tenzorum is a key managed protocol. What we're trying to give to people is an easy and simple way for people to manage the keys and interface with decentralized networks and products. So fundamentally is an access network that abstracts the whole complexity of dealing with keys for users.
Yeah, so essentially what we're doing is, yes, it's key management protocol, but for some people it's a bit hard to grasp, okay, like why key management? But the way we work is very focused on user experience, and then how would the user want to experience the decentralized web, and work backwards to see what are the protocols that can back those needs. So the essential thing for everyone to interface to any decentralized network and service is always interfacing with keys and accessing decentralized networks and services. So that's why key management is actually much bigger than just a thing that is like a keys handling.
Yeah, and fundamentally, just to add on that, just because it's really important, the crucial fact of like abstracting and making keys usable for people, it will completely open a whole new range of usable products, for user experience friendly products in terms of blockchain. Because right now it's really complicated to deal with products in general, since like the network layer to like dApp layer to even exchange layer, it's really frightening and painful to deal with the whole complexity of keys. And like as soon as you solve the key problem, you can open a whole new range of possibilities in terms of what is achievable as customers and users inside the network.
Yeah, so Tenzorum Service Node Network is basically quite a grand and ambitious goal, which is taking the entire aspect of handling access to an independent network. So if now, when you're interacting with Bitcoin, you're handling your Bitcoin keys to actually transact and sign all sorts of messages relating to Bitcoin network, or when you're playing with CryptoKitties on Ethereum or whatever it is, you're interacting with your Ethereum keys. What happens is that these whole islands of overlay networks are fragmented. Tenzorum Service Node Networks establishes the access to all of those different products, and when someone is using Tenzorum to interact, essentially they have to power the compute network that facilitates those key management mechanisms and key management protocols. So to actually power that network, you have to establish reward mechanism, token issuance rate, and have security to the network so that we can actually trust that our keys are safe. So Tenzorum Service Node Network is going to be a progressive crypto economic system where each time we will introduce different protocol that supports more use cases.
So in terms of competitors, what we believe is that the industry is in infancy, and what we have to see is cooperation in our competition. We all building this thing to see the decentralized future to happen, and although key management, it is in fact a really hot thing because everybody knows that it's a big problem, we all looking to integrate and not to separate, all right? So we all looking to integrate with different blockchains, with different projects, and even with different key management systems, because at the end of the day, it's about like accumulating all this brain power towards solving the problem, and not only about like creating this company or whatever. It's an open source project.
Yeah, so one thing that we're looking at, for example, you have companies like Parity Tech, which is building a whole like wealth of open source code base. They're building Polkadot and a bunch of other stuff. A lot of the things that they have are excellent code, but you don't have so much use cases. So our approach is that we are partnering and collaborating with different teams, different projects to integrate this holistic system that powers that. But it's not some kind of like, use our product because we're better, those guys are bad. It's more about how can we actually tie everything together, take necessary components from here and from there to build something that makes sense for people. In terms of roadmap, because in entrepreneurship you want to be practical, we are going to implement some of our first use cases of storage and recovery of keys on Ethereum with high traction projects, and we're actually talking to some of them in this conference, and through our community we have good access to leading projects in the space. So the first implementation would be on Ethereum. And then over the next year or so, we're going to start working on our testnet and start basically establishing the frameworks for developers to come on board, for other projects that want to use APIs and have our own SDK, and obviously like get market traction and build the community. And in terms of the ICO, we actually haven't publicized anything yet, so if you'd want more information about it, just like follow us on social media and go to our website and more information will come soon. What I can say is that we're right now going through the seed funding, and if you want to get in touch, so reach out.
Yeah, and just like to add a little bit on that is in terms of the milestones and the project that we kind of intend to implement this year, is that one of the fundamental elements of what we're trying to build to deliver to our partners right now and to deliver in terms of integration, it's something that is quite unique in terms of industry, is a social recovery protocol to allow people to be able to actually recover the keys in a social manner for the term. Basically, we're creating using some elements like web of trust, like aligned with incentive mechanism to allow people to break down their keys in several fragments, spreads across the network, and then recover it in a really like fashion way.
The biggest challenges to Tenzorum, or I would even say for this industry as a whole, is the fact that user experience is shit. Just like, let's put it straight, like right now, we're still in this either speculators realm, where people are speculating on tokens, or in the hardcore nerds realm, where people are actually like understanding the mechanics of everything, and then they can interact and do their thing. But if you're talking about mass consumer adoption, then we need to start thinking totally differently and not to force the old way of thinking about .com or digital products to try and rebuild things in crypto. Tenzorum, we have kind of a challenge of, on the one hand, bringing this fundamental protocol, couple it together to something that makes sense to a user that does not need to actually interact with the key in a highly technical and savvy way. So this gap that there is to bridge, it's quite a big challenge and an interesting one, I would say, as well.
Yeah, it's the whole paradigm shift about like what a product has to look like, because we completely have to change the idea of business model to crypto economic model, right? It's not like one central entity delivering a service to some users. It's about how to articulate a whole ecosystem where people interact and deliver value to each other in a way that it kind of fits all the balances.